You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Before we begin this episode, a warning. What you're about to listen to contains graphic descriptions of death and violence related to the drug war. On June 30, 2016, Rodrigo Roa Duterte was proclaimed President of the Philippines. True to his campaign promise, he unleashed a war, his war, on illegal drugs across the country. It left thousands of alleged drug users and peddlers dead. Activists say tens of thousands were killed, not all of whom necessarily had anything to do with the crime Duterte said he wanted to fight. Many, mostly from poor villages, were caught in the crossfire, including children and teenagers. Night after night, media workers covered the bloodshed, keeping a record of one of the bloodiest terms in modern Philippine history. The Duterte years produced some of the most troubling and most powerful images. In this special miniseries of Teka Teka, we talk about some of these images, pictures that mattered and that tried to make a difference. The stories behind the images splashed on our screens and newspapers, the kind of mark they left on these journalists, and how they are still trying to make sense of what happened 10 years on.
My name is Eloisa Lopez. I've been a photojournalist for over a decade, and I'm currently a staff photographer for the news agency Reuters. But 10 years ago, when I was covering the drug war, I was a 20-year-old fresh grad working as a freelancer. I want to talk about this photo I took at the crime scene in October 2016. At first glance, it doesn't tell you very much. Apart from the lit candle on the table, you probably wouldn't even know it's a crime scene. But it's one I remember vividly even 10 years later. Alvin John Mendoza was having dinner in this Tapsilog spot in Makati past midnight. He had just ordered his fourth cup of rice when he noticed men on motorcycles on the street corner. I know this because the woman serving him later said that Alvin made a comment about it and said something along the lines of, mukhang may titirahin na naman sila ngayong gabi. Looks like they're about to shoot someone again tonight. A minute later, the masked man rode past the Tapsilogan and shot Alvin. He fell from his seat, his blood pouring into the gutter, leaving his fourth cup of rice uneaten. I remember arriving in the scene, seeing this image, and thinking how quickly death came for this man. One moment he was having dinner, and the next he was gone. He wasn't running, he wasn't hiding, he wasn't in the middle of some confrontation. He was just having dinner a few hundred meters away from his house. I intentionally photographed the scene in this way, omitting the dead body, because I wanted to emphasize that his dinner was interrupted by death. To me, this photograph reflects what the drug war did to its victims and their families. It interrupted their lives, fatally and brutally for those who were killed, emotionally and continuously for those left behind. 10 years have gone by, and while the dead remain dead, their survivors have had to live with the grief and injustice all these years. There is no reckoning with that interruption. Alvin was killed while he was having dinner. His parents, Steve and Anna Faye, were awoken that night to news that their son had just been shot and killed. They watched his blood stream down the gutter. I think about this image often, not because it's the most dramatic or most powerful image I made, but because I can imagine anyone in this scenario. I think that one of the most insidious things the Jaguar did was convince many people that its victims were somehow different, that they were all irredeemable criminals, that what happened to them couldn't happen to the rest of us. Former President Rodrigo Duterte referred to them as the living dead. He questioned their humanity. But this photo, it doesn't show a criminal. It doesn't even really show a crime scene. It shows an interrupted dinner. Alvin was just a man having dinner. Honestly, when I think about the Jaguar now, I don't really think about the violence I witnessed anymore. I think what stayed engraved in my mind were the details. I think about the plate of food that was left. I think about the tiny coffin of a child they called collateral. I think about the wailing of a mother and a wife. I think about the collective horror of neighbors or their sheer lack of care sometimes in some cases. I think about the child who wept and probably could not understand what was happening. Um, I look back at the Jaguar and mostly I think about the people that were left behind. And I think that's because they've also been the ones I've continued to see and photograph all these years. From the crime scenes, the funerals, the wakes, the exhumations, the protests, they're all still there. The people left behind were victims too. And and yeah, 10 years on, they're still here, they're still seeking justice. 10 years since the drug war, their lives remain interrupted. The first crime scene I covered, I remember that it traumatized me. I had nightmares after it. But when I came back, I think maybe a week or 2 weeks after that, I started working on autopilot. I immediately just started working out of compulsion. I had to do it. I This is happening in my backyard. It was happening a few blocks away from the apartment I rented. It felt almost obligatory for me to be there and cover it. I just did it because I thought I had to and because I can and because I believe so much that I had to be there to witness and to document. I think that because I started my career covering the drug war, it set the foundation for me on how to be a photographer with empathy. I think that because I was so young and because I was surrounded by photographers from all over the world who came here to cover the Jaguar at the time, I learned so much and I learned how to operate in such a way that you document and don't lose your humanity. I still remember how a photojournalist, Daniel Berahulak, shared with me um, that when you're covering a funeral or anything, when you're covering a family that's grieving, don't forget to look up from your camera. Don't forget to look at the people you photograph in the eye and just be there. You don't have to take every single frame. I think I think learning that then at such a young age has really um set myself for yeah, all of these other assignments that I've done all these years, from earthquakes and all the other hostile environments I've covered everywhere else. And it's an unfortunate thing that's how I started, but it has also been a privilege to be able to witness and to learn from that experience.
And this was the final episode of Pictures That Matter, a special mini-series on Teka Teka. I'm Jhesset Enano, the producer of this episode. Our video editor is Ces Leslie Salada. Thank you for joining us in taking time to mark the 10th anniversary of the war on drugs. Not so much to look back, but to acknowledge continuing efforts to pursue justice and accountability for the thousands of Filipinos killed. For stories that matter, subscribe to Teka Teka on Spotify or the PumaPodcast channel on YouTube. Maraming salamat po.